Hey everybody, we're going to be looking at some of our articulation settings today in Logic. This is one of my favorite things, and it's really useful when working with like orchestral banks. For instance, let's close that synth. I have this trumpet part here, and I've created an articulation set just for this because it's key switchable, which means if I play a different one of these blue notes down at the bottom, I get a different sound. So I have not all, but I have a lot of different options for how to make that trumpet sound. Well, we can come through relatively easily, create a new articulation set. We type in all of the names of the different sound types that we have, the key switches. For each of those, we assign them to a note on, and every time we switch between those articulations, down here, either on our piano roll or out on the actual instrument itself, you can see them right up here. Then we actually can have those change. Let me switch that back to the right one for a moment, the one I've created for this. Now, when I select this note, I can choose between the articulation. I'm going pretty fast because I'm not really showcasing this aspect of it. I just want to give you an overview of what it's capable of and then show you kind of this new way of using it a little bit. But this is super handy because now I can have these two notes be one articulation, all these other notes above be a different articulation, and they can actually work essentially simultaneously. Okay, so that's super useful, right? It means we can put a bunch of different notes in the same track and have them do different things. Well, down here, let's switch this out. I've got one of the synthesizers, the retro synth, and right now it has an unnamed articulation thing. We haven't saved this yet, but you can see I've got two articulations, one called the full mod wheel and one called the plain mod wheel. That's just an uncreative naming convention for the moment. And the output of these, instead of doing note on for the key switching, I switch this to controller. Or I could set this to program. Or I could do this as aftertouch or pitch bend. And so I've got a lot of different options here. To be able to control this. We have poly aftertouch. We have all of this stuff. So just to show you, for the mod wheel, I have that selected to number 1, which is just the basic mod wheel. And then I have the value of 127. So that means it's going to pull the full mod wheel all the way up to 127. And then for the plain one, down to 0. So now I've got these notes. And the first one is set to full. Second one is set to plain. So listen to how that sounds. They go back and forth. So we can actually use this outside of the orchestral realm to change our synths, our other instruments, anything that we can control with that data that we have selected there. The most important part, well, not the most important, one of the more important parts is once we have this created, that we would save as, and then put this into our articulation settings folder. This is where we would do this. So if you wanted to copy and paste from one computer to another, this is where they're going to be under Music, Audio Music Apps, Articulation Settings. You can just drag them from computer to computer as well if you wanted to copy them. But this is the place where we would do this. So we would save this as, most of these would be instrument specific. So we would make sure to get the right name. And then we would do mod wheel like that. Now, could we do this, the mod wheel, just the old-fashioned way by moving the mod wheel? Of course. This isn't something we have to do. But there are some cool things we can do with this in terms of sequencing now that makes this interesting or easier to do. Just like with the trumpet, we have that ability to change the sound inside the MIDI note itself. And so I'm curious what other things we could think of that would be useful for this, and what things we could use the articulation settings for. But I think that this is a good kind of intro to the idea of starting to use the articulations in different ways, in ways that perhaps maybe you hadn't thought of or I haven't thought of, but could be useful in music production. Okay, that's it for today, just this introduction. I'm going to continue to think about this and find new ways to use these articulations inside our music production area.